This summer, members of the Green Party of England and Wales will be electing a new executive, commonly known as GPEx. Now, members of GPEx are elected to specific portfolios, but also hold collective responsibility for the day-to-day management of the Green Party. Now, I have one of the candidates for the management coordinator position with me today. But before I introduce them, I have one thing to ask of you, which is that you scroll down and hit that subscribe button right now. It means that you won't miss out on all of the other interviews we're putting out with the GPEx and the deputy leadership candidates and all the other videos we're putting out in the coming weeks and months. So without further ado, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Stacy Smith. Stacy, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chris.
Brilliant. Well, I will kick you off with hopefully an easy question, which is why do you think that you would make a good management coordinator for the Green Party?
Well, I've been a staff manager for many years. I currently am CEO of a small women's charity in Greenwich. So I deal with a lot of day-to-day issues around managing staff and managing as an organization. So I have quite a lot of HR experience, which is one of the key areas of the role. And also because my service mainly works with women leaving abuse, I have a certain amount of familiarity with safeguarding policies and practices. So I think, and that's another key area of this role. So I think I bring that experience. I've also been a board member and I am currently accountable to a board. So I understand, the workings of committees and the remit between the operational work that staff do and the strategic overview that an executive committee would have.
So you've mentioned there that one of the kind of core roles of the management coordinator position on the executive is overseeing the relationship between the executive and i.e. the democratic wing of the organization and the staff team, i.e. the kind of permanent kind of civil service aspect, if you like. Mm-hmm. How would you improve the support that the Green Party and GPEx offers the Green Party staff team?
Well, I think it's really important to make sure we've got good structures in place that support staff. So obviously we need to have regular supervision, direct line supervision with the CEO. We need to make sure that the rest of the staff are having that regular supervision and support from their line managers. There should be annual appraisals. There should be clear information to the staff. There should be monthly staff meetings, so there's good communication across the staff team about key issues and a feed down from what the executive is talking about in a general way. So I think good communication and good structures to support that are quite key. Obviously, I want to make sure staff have all the appropriate staff policies and procedures in place. We've got about 20 of those that we put together for our organization. I work a lot with good, CIC HR support. So I kind of know how to draw in support that's very cost effective as well, where we need that to do more specialist work.
So obviously you talked there about your experience in other organizations, particularly, I guess, kind of small to medium-sized organizations in the third sector, which is kind of exactly what the Green Party is in many ways. Now, one of the challenges that organizations like that often face is that on the one hand, they are they are seeking to be, progressive organizations that are trying to drive change in the world or provide like vital services or whatever it is, but at the same time they're faced with quite significant and substantial budgetary constraints, and also a need to be incredibly flexible, particularly for the Green Party, which is a political party that is rolling from election to election, that we don't know, given our political system, our democratic set of structures, when the next general election could be. It might be called tomorrow and the entire organization has to shift at the drop of a hat. So how do you balance the kind of ambitions to be a progressive, pioneering supportive employer with the needs to be that kind of flexible organization that can kick into a gear when a general election is called or whatever the other demands are, and also understand the kind of budgetary restraints that being a smaller political party poses, and how do you square that circle?
Well, every year I face a deficit. This April, I had a deficit of around £100,000, which is about a fifth of, well, a little less than a sixth of our turnover. And now I have no deficit. So because I've fundraised enough to cover that. So I really understand a lot about fundraising. It's probably a good chunk of what I do as a CEO for a small charity. So I also have a great team that support me, but we are all incredibly tight. So we are really careful with how we spend the money. We pay our staff well because that's really important to get quality staff, but everything else we squeeze to the minimum. So we run events, we get local people to do the food, and we negotiate a really good price. We, drive down the price of any venue as far as we can. We get speakers for free whenever we can. We're very good at getting value for money. So I have a really strong understanding about how to get the best out of a budget and how you have to be flexible. Like I said, I had this $100,000 deficit. I had to plan, what did that mean for providing our services? Also, our services are demand-led. So we're dealing with women experiencing abuse during COVID. Staff and the women using our services faced way more additional challenges. Staff were working from home on the telephone when complete lockdown was in. People were coming in part-time as soon as we were able to. And we did actually have an emergency service for food coming in even during lockdown. So, we had to respond to more restrictions on staff and more demand on our services with no more money. And we did it because the staff are committed to what we're doing and see that, we as a management really are committed, and we are committed to looking after them as well. My staff are doing hybrid working still. We meet very regularly as a group to make sure how we're going forward makes sense. I'm very transparent about the risks and ups and downs with our finances, so they're very aware. We've had to do a recent restructuring because of cuts, but now, we're kind of back on track. I think I've been through those experiences, so I bring some ability to manage those without finding them overwhelming.
One of the things that you mentioned there was fundraising, and I've done about a dozen of these interviews for this year's GPEx elections now, and reflecting on them, I think almost every single person that I've interviewed has talked about the fact that the Green Party needs to get better at fundraising, and that one of the bigger challenges the party faces at the moment is that there just isn't the money there to deliver the political ambitions that the party has. So for you, what does a successful fundraising approach for the Green Party look like that enables it to have the funding it needs to deliver on its political aims?
Okay, well, I think we need to look at the spectrum. We need to have a fundraising strategy that's looking at, the direct donations we get, whether there's any partnership donation plans where you get match funding that we would be eligible for and would be appropriate for us. I know that there's been some sponsorship from green energy, or good energy, sorry, is that, do we want to find partners who share our values, who might be able to give us some kind of sponsorship? I think we could develop that a lot more. We need to be very careful and make sure they're not greenwashers. But I know good energy. I've seen them talk at Hay. I've used them. I get them. So we need to look at things like that. There may be funding out there that political parties are eligible for. Obviously, it's not something I've researched because I'm not a political party in my day job. But again, if that's out there, we need to be applying for it. I think the key is you need to crank out all these things at the same time. But I also think we need to look at, I mean, the Labour Party locally in Greenwich said, oh, the Green Party must have overspent during the election because they were producing these incredibly beautiful leaflets. And actually, we were using the skills of our members to create these incredibly beautiful leaflets, and we did not overspend. And so I think it's also about being really creative about how we use the skills within the party and encouraging people to be more involved in that way.
One sort of final question on the specifics of the management coordinator role before I move on to some wider questions about GPEx more broadly. And it relates to something which you mentioned earlier, which is within the kind of remit of the management coordinator position, which is the party's approach to safeguarding. Now, you talked about having some experience of this, but I wondered if you could touch on what you think the Green Party needs to do to get into a position where its safeguarding policies and practices are up to scratch.
Well, I think we need to review it both, kind of what's written on paper, but what we've done in the past. Have we followed the policies? Have we gone astray? And that's gotten us into situations where we're not addressing a problem or a person's concerns or a person's safety in the way that we should. So I think a review within the safeguarding policies and the wider policies of the Green Party. I know there's been issues about transgender people feeling attacked, and how that's been handled may not have been handled in the best way for the individuals raising that. So we need to make sure, have we followed the policies of the Green Party, and then have we followed our safeguarding in a way that supports people? Do we have clear leadership who, within the staffing and within not just this one role, but sort of across the board in how we will respond? Because generally, when you do it like a safeguarding, you need to have overview of more than one person, so you can sign that off and feel that it's dealt with properly.
So as I said, I'm going to move on to the slightly broader questions now. The first of which is, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the Green Party right now?
We need to get engagement, and we need to get people to believe we can get elected. I think there's so many people that are polled that support all our policies, or the vast majority of our policies, not only around climate change and saving the environment, but also around universal basic income and, addressing inequalities. We have some really fantastic policies in our manifesto. But people think, oh, but you won't get in. And I talked to some people. I had lunch with a friend who's greener than I am in terms of, her whole lifestyle is incredibly green, but she feels she has to vote Labor because her family voted Labor. She identifies with the labor movement. I think we need to really look at that barrier, because I think there's a lot of people who support actually our values more than what Labor seems to stand for right now, and yet don't feel able to vote for us. So we need to get past that barrier. We need to do that on a very local level by getting out there more and getting our message across and getting more people to sign up as members. And then we need to get out nationally and promote not just our environmental issues, which are incredibly relevant right now, but also, all our other equalities issues, are issues around financing and, real leveling up, proper tax policies that, tax landowners who are, are not taxed the same as workers. We need to get those messages out in a clear and easy to digest way at a national level. So we need more exposure.
And so one of the things that you mentioned earlier is something that I wanted to pick up, and it's this issue around discrimination and diversity within the Green Party. And you mentioned it specifically in relation to transgender people. But to give a little bit more context, we're currently seeing we've got a deputy leadership election happening right now, and in that deputy leadership election, there are 4 candidates, all of whom are men from London. You look at the Green Party from the local level to the national level, and you've got whether it's looking at elected representatives in terms of councillors, whether it's looking at people who sit on local party or regional committees, whether it's people involved at a kind of central level. It doesn't reflect the diversity, firstly, of our party, but secondly, of the country as a whole when it comes to race. We're an overwhelmingly white party. And also, as you alluded to earlier, the scourge of transphobia that is being whipped up at the moment by the right-wing press and by the Conservative Party and by others has infected elements of the Green Party as well. And so as a member of GPEx, part of your responsibility and the collective responsibility of that body will be tackling these issues of diversity and discrimination in the party. So how would you personally approach that, tackling those issues?
I think when we're looking at discrimination, we need to tackle it very strongly. We have a clear stance on our equalities policy. We need to enforce that, and we shouldn't dance around it. I did hear the deputy leader debate, and I did feel, it was really sidetracking from what, we needed to be talking about. And I run a women's organization. I've had a lot of discussions with people about, does the ability of trans women able to identify as trans put vulnerable women at risk? I think that there are checks in place, so that's not an issue, because trans women are not the risk. The risk is, the occasional nasty man who claims to be trans to hurt women, and he'll hurt women that are trans or women born in women bodies. So, we need to be really clear who the enemy is in this. And to me, that I'm very clear on that. I do a lot of work to say women shouldn't have to feel they have to keep themselves safe all the time. Society should challenge men's aggression and abuse. And that's where I'd like to turn it, so that we always challenge aggression and abuse towards anyone. Regarding making sure we're much more diverse in terms of the different backgrounds that people come from. In my own organization, my staff are mainly born in other countries, many of them from Africa or South Asia. It means that they get much better engagement with the women we see, who are, from every background, but Greenwich has quite a diverse area. So it's about 30% people from a BAME background. I think that's crucial. And yes, we do need to look at, I think part of the problem is we campaign where we know we've got support, but where we've got the easy support is with the white middle class. So we need to recognize we're doing that and change our strategy and spend a lot more time working in council areas, doing local events, always with food, because food makes people come and feel happy about you. If you feed them for free, you've already made a connection. And we do that with our events at her center. So I think it's a really good way to get engagement. We went from getting 5 people turning up at our events 14 years ago to over 100 at our last International Women's Day event. So, there are ways that we can really look at how we get better engagement, working more with specific community leaders, seeing if within their groups there are people interested in the Green Party, getting them to hear about our issues. We need to be more targeted in getting that wider engagement. And it goes back to what I was talking about, engagement. We've got to get out of our comfort zone and go to places that are not our automatic, easy support areas.
So then my final question for you is a slightly flippant one, but it's one that I like to finish on, which is, who in the Green Party inspires you the most?
Oh, well, it's probably Caroline, because she's stayed in there, the sole MP. She's incredibly grounded and sensible, and she should be prime minister. She's, who else has, across all the parties, has her level of intelligence and balance. I did see a brilliant short film that was kind of a spoof film about COP26, where there's someone pretending to be a cynical interviewer who then interviewed a very depressed George Monbiot, and also interviewed a very angry Caroline Lucas, which was an unusual side to see of her. She's just amazing. I just think, why don't we have more Carolines in Parliament? So she keeps me thinking we have to play the long game. We have to keep pushing to get more Greens elected so that we can bring about the real change we need to bring.
Thank you so much, Stacey, for joining me. Where can people find out more about your campaign?
Okay, I'm not on Twitter. I'm too old. There is information out there. See, I should have been prepared for this one, and I'm not. I'm so sorry, Chris. I'm on the London base camp and Greenwich base camp. There's my profile information is out there with Eros.
And members can find all the information about all the candidates on the members website, including their candidate statements and video recordings of hustings. So if you want to find out more, you can see that all there. So before I let everyone go, I just have a few final things to say. The first of which is that if you have found this video interesting, if you found the interview useful, if you're a member of the Green Party in determining how you will vote, then please do hit that subscribe button. It means that you won't miss out on all the other interviews we're putting out with the other GPEx candidates. On our YouTube channel right now, you can see our interview with Kefense Dennis, who's the other candidate standing in this election. But it means that you won't miss out on all the other interviews and videos that we put out in the coming weeks and months. So do scroll down right now and hit subscribe. The second thing is we've been talking for nearly half an hour now, and I'm sure there's plenty in there that you have agreed with. There may be some stuff in there that you've disagreed with. Whatever your thoughts, please do let us know in the comments down below and keep the conversation going there. And finally, Bright Green, it may surprise you to know, does not have the backing and the support of billionaires and big business. We rely solely on the kind and generous donations of people just like you. So if you found this interview useful, if you want to see more content like this, then please do head to bright-green.org/donate and set up a regular donation so that we can continue to provide all the coverage we do of the UK's Green parties, of the Labour movement, of social movements, and the wider left. So that's all from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all very, very soon.